So how did you meet Minghella in the first place?
The first time I was aware of Anthony was actually through my mother. My mum was a teacher originally, and then decided to take up follow her passion for theatre, and she set up a theatre company. And one of her first plays was A Little Like Drowning, which was one of Anthony's first plays. And she wrote to Anthony and asked for some advice, and him, in his typical embracive and passionate way, invited her over for lunch and talked her through the entire play. And so I remembered then his name, and I remembered seeing the play, and I was familiar with him and his work. And then, I'm embarrassed to say this, I was working with his wife. I was doing this very odd little British film with a Chinese director, and his wife was producing it, and he offered me the part of Dickie Greenleaf in The Talented Mr Ripley, and he'd just won, I think, 9 Oscars for The English Patient, and I turned down the part. I don't know why. I don't know what I was thinking. I think, if I'm honest, I was like 25 or 6, and I sort of thought it was I thought it was a part that played too much on just good looks, and it wasn't, there wasn't a lot to it. And he, thank goodness, he came and saw me and sort of talked me through the possibilities in this role. And we embarked on what ended up being a wonderful creative collaboration. We did Ripley, we did Cold Mountain, and then we did his final film before he passed away, Breaking and Entering.
I read somewhere that around the time of this movie, Minghella said about you something like, your greatest obstacle as an actor was your looks, by which he meant, I think, that he worried that you could be typecast only as a leading man, and that people would not know what a very good actor you are, besides being a very good-looking one. It's a nice problem to have, a lot. But has it worked out that way in your career? Do you think that you have you had to struggle to get out from underneath that, or was it?
It's a very uncomfortable and odd conversation to have in a way, because by discussing it, it's like confirming that I think I'm this incredibly good-looking man. You know what I mean? Although I have to say, looking at that, which I can now at the age of 43, I was very pretty. Back then. But like anyone, you wake up and you love your face, you hate your face, your face is your face, and I would also add that the thing with looks in an acting career is that I don't know. There are unconventional looking actors who have fantastic careers because they're unconventional looking. So it's not always a given that, people think you're good looking, therefore you're going to have this wonderful career or not get offered. I think in the end you're found out, and it's therefore what you choose to do and what you deliver. And sure, there was a time when, I think turning down that part initially was a perfect example of this. There was a time early on when I thought, I should only do character roles. I should only do really odd, ugly people, so that everyone takes me seriously. And then, of course, you realise that you're kind of, you're cutting your own Achilles heel. Then it's like just get on with it and see what comes your way. But equally, choose wisely and carefully.
I think probably my favorite of your recent movies is Dom Hemingway, and
Lord.
I wish we could have a clip of that.
I'm not surprised you don't. It would be
well, especially the opening monologue.
No, quite.
Well, it's hard to explain, except that you play this kind of second-rate safecracker who gets out of jail, but part of what makes it so wonderful is you seem to be taking terrific pleasure, and you look really seedy in this movie.
Yeah.
You seem really to be enjoying that.
Well, what was lovely was thinking, okay, you've got to create the face of a man who's spent 16 years in prison, who's been drunk for possibly 25 years of his life, and bears the scars of all sorts of, injuries and mistakes and problems. And so sitting with a very talented makeup artist and just looking at how you put all of that into the face and without wearing prosthetics, it's fun. Because then you feel like you've got the mask of the character, and once you've got that mask, you disappear into him or her.
The other great thing about this movie is that he has these monologues. That,
Yeah.
I mean, they're like the monologues in a play,
Yeah.
really, more than a movie.
But they reminded me of that, and I think that's something that really appealed to me. He loved the sound of his own voice, and he reminded me of a sort of Falstaffian kind of a drunk and was also, even though he was an uneducated man and not a man who probably read very much, he had a wonderful way with words. And Richard Shepard, who wrote it and directed it, really embraced that type of drunk, and I thought, put some beautiful words together. It was a lot of fun to learn and a lot of fun to play. Yeah.
It too has a wonderful accent.
Well, that's my act. That's where I'm from.
Is that really?
Yeah.
That's your accent?
The one thing I said to Richard was, because at the time I read it, he had kind of got his geography of London wrong. In fact, he had been to London, but he'd set this by sort of looking at a map and didn't realize anyway. And I kept saying, no. If this guy's from here, he can't go there, and he would never, So we went back, and I took him to the part of London I grew up, southeast London, and I grew up in an area called Lewisham, but we decided to put Dom in an area called Woolwich. I gave him a Woolwich accent, and there were guys I went to school with who I'm sure became chaps like Dom Hemingway, because, well, they were pretty terrifying when I knew them as a boy.
So, when you're a boy going to school with these terrifying guys, do you already know that you're going to be an actor? When did that...
That's why I was terrified of them. I was this pretty blonde kid called Jude who wanted to be an actor, right? Full of enthusiasm about the theatre and films, and I usually got thumped by them. I knew pretty, at a very young age, that it was something I wanted to follow. I had parents who were teachers and who were great enthusiasts for theatre and film, and I grew up being taken to the theatre a lot and going to the cinema a lot, and it was just a passion. I was a real sponge for it. I loved it, and then at the first opportunity as a kid in school, putting on plays, it just felt like a dialogue, a place where I was comfortable. I remember putting on plays as a class with the teacher obviously directing and just thinking, this didn't feel like class, this felt like play. And it felt easy, it felt comfortable, I felt at home. And I guess as soon as I made the connection that could also be a job that you would do, it seemed like an obvious direction to go in. And then, the passion takes over when you also realize there's a not serious element, but an element of you can actually have a voice. You can bring a voice to things that you care about, people that you care about, subject matters that you care about.
So, unlike a lot of British actors of your generation, you didn't go to the Royal Academy, you started quite young, actually learning on the job, right?
Yeah. I was a member of the National Youth Music Theatre from the age of 13, which was a company, 12, 13, and we were that was a company that still operates, and we would meet during the holidays and improvise and put on theatre that we would then take to festivals around the country, and then I got offered a job on TV and I left school.
Your parents were okay with that?
They were. As teachers, it was very interesting. I think they knew that it was something I took very seriously, and I think we agreed that if it all went wrong, I agreed that I would go return to my education, and that was it. I didn't really stop. I did an awful lot of theatre first. Film didn't seem like a reality. I would go and see movies all the time, but being a film actor or having a film career just didn't seem realistic in Lewisham. It felt like a distant. It felt like something that happened a lot. Well, it did happen a long, long way away, but it just didn't seem conceivable to get into that world. Whereas theatre, you drive past theatres all the time, as you do here in New York. In London, there they are. So even the idea of going and asking for a job seemed possible. And it felt also that I was following, not that I did it necessarily consciously, but following in the footsteps of a British tradition of cutting my teeth on the stage. And I'm really grateful for that. I feel that it enabled me to become much more aware of the mechanics of being an actor and the demands of being an actor, and also the respect for the process and the craft of being an actor.
Were there people that you took as models? Were there actors that you particularly admired and tried to...
Certainly. I mean, as a child, I was a huge fan of Paul Newman and Steve McQueen. I mean, I'm going to say all the obvious ones. I mean, the greats. And then the generation of British actors ahead of me, people like Gary Oldman, Tim Roth, Daniel Day-Lewis, were huge heroes. Sean Penn. I think the thing I loved about them in particular was the variety of roles they were playing, that none of them seemed to... You know, I remember in one year seeing My Beautiful Laundrette and then Room with a View, and I just couldn't believe it was the same actor who had done both. And having that in mind, the opportunity of keeping yourself guessing and keeping your audience guessing as to what you would do next.